Hi, everyone. We have made it to the West Coast. We are in Vancouver. We're going to be talking to a few studio owners and design leaders from the city of Vancouver. Before we kick it off, I'm going to pass the mic over to Laura, who's going to give us a Vancouver land acknowledgement.
Yeah, it's just a quick one. I wanted to acknowledge that we are speaking to you from the traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations.
Thank you, Laura. I'm also going to leave the mic with you and ask that you introduce yourself to our audience.
All right. My name is Laura Potter, and I'm the client director for the communication design team at HCMA. HCMA is an interdisciplinary design firm with offices in Vancouver, but also in Victoria and Edmonton. I'm a writer and a strategist. I work with graphic designers, with architects, with sustainability researchers, and inclusive designers. We work together on interdisciplinary projects, and we also work apart. So many people in Vancouver will primarily know HCMA for our architecture and work on public buildings, community centers, aquatic centers, university buildings. But over the past 5 years, that work has really extended into inclusive design and accessibility services, graphic design and branding with my team, and as I say, kind of sustainability advisory services. And watch the space, I think product design or industrial design might be next.
Cool, that'd be fun to see. Matthew, do you want to give us a little introduction?
Yep. Hi, everybody. I'm Matthew. I am the creative director here at Monday Creative. So we are a strategic brand and marketing agency based here in Vancouver, but we predominantly operate down the West Coast, dipping into Texas with a couple of clients as well. We predominantly work with active outdoor and wellness brands. We kind of dealing with the likes of Lululemon, Arc'teryx, Adidas, Allbirds is a recent client that we've just won. But we also kind of dip our toes in with other brands of different scales. We have development clients like everybody does on their books nowadays. We also work with a lot of startups, a lot of female-founded startups as well, just to kind of go back to the heritage and how the company was founded by 3 females. Our legacy is we started as from copywriting, and we've gradually grown into becoming a full service creative agency. So everything from branding, from strategy, identity, to campaigns, art direction, video, into digital, dipping our toes into a lot more e-commerce and digital this year in terms of website builds as well. And then that's Monday in a nutshell.
Awesome. And Matthew, how big's your team right now?
Our team is currently 10 people. It's a split of, I'd say 60% of our team is focused on design, and we've got 30% focused on strategy. And then the other 10% is all operations and making sure that everything's delivered on time, on budget, and makes our clients happy.
Thanks. Vida, what about you?
Hi, I'm Vida Jurcic. I'm a founding partner of Hangar 18 Design Continuum in Vancouver, of course. And we do a lot of brand strategy and branding, but we also do a lot of work in the sustainability arena, especially with the city of Vancouver and with some of our real estate clients who are more involved with building communities, walkable communities. We are now currently 4 people. So it's my partner and I, and we've got a project manager and a digital designer. So we're small, but at one time we had 22 people. And we like to be lean and mean and bring in people as we need them. So
yeah, it's fun to think about the different sort of phases, evolutions of a studio for sure. Rihanna, what about you? Want to tell us about Super Bonjour?
Hello, my name is Rihanna. I am the co-founder of a design studio called Super Bonjour. We are bi-coastal, and we specialize in strategy, branding, and content. Our process is really revolving around empathy and awareness, and we really like to champion change, and we like to challenge the status quo a lot. And that's helping us to sort of reimagine the way that things are seen, spaces, and even systems. So we really are championing for a healthier future in the way that we work. I work both in Vancouver and in Montreal. I'm a duo, and my partner Vanda is based in Montreal. And
folks might remember Vanda from our Montreal panel.
Yes, wait for it. Hopefully you all checked out the panel in Montreal. Heard it was really exciting and interesting. And yeah, we started off as editorial art directors. Then we went into branding. We worked in-house. We worked for agencies. And then eventually, Vanda and I just wanted to start our own agency. We wanted to have the autonomy and intentionally stay small, which is why we're two. Very small, very hardworking, and very, very full of care. Very, very kind and careful. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, welcome. I'm so happy that we get to have these conversations. It's been so
Yeah.
interesting to travel across the country virtually and hear from folks in all different regions. I've enjoyed kicking these conversations off just with starting to get a sense of what the design community and industry looks like in your area. So when you think about the design community in Vancouver, what sort of comes to mind for you?
I find it's a little bit fragmented right now.
Okay, tell us
It's
more.
not as inclusive as it used to be in many ways, but I think things are changing. I also teach at Capilano University and in the IDEA program, and I think a lot of the students that are coming out in cohorts, they're going to be their own community with their own years and the people coming after them and that came before them. So yeah, anybody else?
I haven't, I grew up in Vancouver, but was working in the UK for over a decade, and so only came back 2 years ago. And I think, as Vita says, it doesn't feel like there's an ecosystem really in place for branding and graphic design. I mean, maybe design more broadly, but it does. I think that can and will change. Coming back to the Capilano Capilano University IDEA School of Design. I mean, I've heard such amazing things. One of our designers, Pamela Pinyard, she's just gone traveling, but she was with us. She's an amazing talent, and she just said that school, trained her. And just the past few weeks, we've had another student join us on a practicum. Her name's Mia. She's incredible, and I think that fuel really will help shift things, even as hopefully as leaders, we can also kind of create events and programming and community for those students coming up.
Laura, that's been so fascinating, the sort of role that a design institution, a school, or a really good design program plays in the sort of ecosystem of design in a region. Some of the folks I've spoken to who don't have a design school in their area, finding young talent is really, really hard. So that's really interesting.
Exactly. We're lucky. We also have the Wilson School of Design who are putting out some good people. So I think our region's lucky that way.
And also to advocate, not just because they're a client of ours, but Emily Carr, like I sit on the advisory committee for the School of Idea, but Emily Carr as well is doing a lot of great work there of just improving and really focusing on what they output and producing different types of creatives that we obviously need in today's market.
I find it really interesting that our community, for me specifically, is really around the creative community, not so much the agencies. So like we were mentioning that my creative community is like photographers and illustrators, sometimes freelance graphic designers or stylists, hair and makeup, which is a completely different realm of creativity and community, I find, which is actually really interesting because it places me more into like the creative class as opposed to an entrepreneurial girl boss hustle mentality. Like I'm really into I'm working with friends, I'm creating from that space, which I think gives the opportunity to really start to create awesome and interesting things. Because I used to think like back in the day, this is a long time ago, like when I was 20 years old, I started a magazine with my best friend, Chris, called Butter. I don't know, it was a long time ago, it was the year 2000, but we all came together and we're like, magazines didn't exist in Vancouver at the time other than Van Mag, but because we were so excited to create something and because there was the possibility to do that, we ended up creating community. So there's something really awesome with the fact that Vancouver kind of gives you that space to create, because there might not be the opportunity, there might not be the competition that you think. And I think that kind of like, I don't know, it's like a very, very independent creative spirit that I think can actually be tapped into the city. But I think that that's just based on the fact that I might not have all the contacts with all the agencies. I might not like talking about being hustling, and I might just be really focused on creating. So that's another kind of difference I'm finding with the city specifically.
Yeah.
Like you have the time, you can do it. You can do it. You can do cool shit. You can do cool shit.
It's a
I
bit
think
of a
it's really-
city of entrepreneurs. Oh, sorry, Matthew.
I was going to say, I just find that really interesting because we were speaking beforehand about just the early years. That's where we feel like as a creative
I
community.
know, right?
And that experience that you're speaking to there, Rihanna, is very much that early years. It's just like, hey, we're figuring it out. But because in some respects, firms have been planted with certain ideologies and planted into the city, that
Totally.
it's created this disconnect because we're all kind of going up against each other, whereas actually
Mhm.
we're a collective, and we only grow through sharing knowledge and breaking bread and sitting down and having a cup of coffee or having a pint of beer. It's the same kind of things that we maybe need to, maybe it's on the four of us to start fostering these things again.
Why not?
Exactly. Yeah, my partner and I were just talking about that. Like, it would be great if there was if there was more collaboration within the design community, because there are certain firms in town that are experts in, say, digital design, like front end stuff, or maybe they're amazing at wayfinding, and we've got a client that needs a lot of wayfinding. So it would be wonderful if there was a bit more of that collaborative spirit.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really taking away that scarcity mentality that I think we would have. It's an expensive city. It's a small city. And I think that also shapes the way in which we create community too. And I think when you remove that scarcity model and go into a community care mentality, you know that the abundance is there, that the work is there, that the sharing is caring aspect of it is really true, but it's like really getting out of that mindset and like reaching out and having these talks, like what we're doing right now, is really important, I think.
I agree. We're a bit of a city of entrepreneurs in some way, rather than, there are certain cities, I think, that have larger design firms that everybody wants to work for, but here everyone's starting their own thing.
Well, and you have a big in-house culture in Vancouver too, right? The Herschels, the Lululemons, like there's a really big in-house design
There is,
culture as well.
It's totally different. Having worked in Montreal for a decade, it was a completely different structure. There were people in-house, but it was still very open in terms of like working with other talent, working with other agencies to create more cross-pollination. But I think, again, like what ends up happening is it's trying to save money by hiring that one art director to do everything. And that's such a hard place for that person to create from as well. I've known, because I've been there, and it's really hard on us to like continuously output creative. But moving here, I realized like, oh shit, everybody's in-house. Okay, whereas back east, it's just like you can work for the big brands, no problem, in a bigger way. But here, it's becoming a little bit more hard. At least for us, it is.
Let's talk about some of the opportunities that seem to be presenting themselves in Vancouver. What's sort of happening in the industry, opportunities you might be seeing, trends you might be seeing, or maybe tools and skills you're investing in because it feels like something that's coming?
Tools and skills. I would say we're kind of investing more in the business side of running our business, because being creatives that we're running the business, sometimes things have changed. You have to actually go out and hunt your business down these days. So one of our employees, who is sort of our business manager, she's been taking workshops and things just to hone up on that even more. I think we as partners have to be very much involved, but it's great to have somebody to bring us down to earth a bit sometimes.
Well, and no designer opens their own studio because they wanted to run a business.
No.
They opened their own studio because they didn't want a boss. They wanted to make their own work, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then they get stuck with clients.
Yeah, it's true.
That's so true.
What else are you sort of seeing in Vancouver that feels important right now?
I feel like maybe we're all drawing a blank because it comes back to that sort of like fragmented, siloed issue where we're like, I don't know what's happening with you guys. Maybe a wider trend. I think that is perhaps the West Coast is on top of, and maybe the East Coast too, but is digital accessibility. It's called the Accessible, I had to write it down, the Accessible British Columbia Act will be mandating a certain standard for accessibility on websites, in the coming years.
Oh.
So one of our inclusive design team members is an expert in WCAG 2.0, 2.10. So the accessibility standard, and she developed a full training program for the whole firm with then like specific modules for the communication design team. And the firm's made kind of like a partnership level commitment to having all of our primary external facing communications meeting those standards by the end of the year. So
that is so
wonderful.
exciting to hear. So those laws have been in place in Ontario for a long time. The RG itself has our accessibility handbook. It's second edition now.
The bright yellow one, right?
Yes, exactly.
That was actually invaluable to us because we did a project about a year and a half ago now for the city of Victoria, which was about accessibility in design. So they were a little bit ahead of the trend, but
isn't it fascinating like something like that is provincial law and not federal law?
Yeah.
It's been a really good challenge too, because Christine is an inclusive designer. She's trained as a graphic designer, but she's always kind of bringing that lens and challenging the other designers on my team to be more creative in their solutions. Thinking about color contrast, like it should be even more beautiful when it's accessible, but you're gonna have to work for it.
I love that way of framing it as well, that it's definitely something that we've built into our branding, of really getting into accessibility around color contrast and ratios and really considering that for digital outputs. But we just worked on a campaign and it's going in market in the next week or two. And the creative that we came up for, a client loved the vision, and then it was just, what about different color blindness and ratios of this? So we had to go through a series of just like, even from a print perspective, of proving it out to be like, actually what we originally intended does work, but we went through that level of fidelity to ensure that that happened. So it's great that more of this sort of type of legislation is coming down, but I think it's not just on us, it's our clients that are really advocates for it as well, which is great.
And I think the general public too, right? The more the public sort of asking for things to be inclusive and saying something when something's difficult to interact with, the more important it's going to become.
Christine played a clip in one of our training. I want to say it was from like someone at YouTube, but the quote was like, we don't need more people who know a lot about accessible design. We need more people to know a little.
Yeah.
And she was kind of saying that she was bringing that out to rally us, but I think that is a rallying cry for the whole industry. It's like, you don't have to be the expert, but you need to be thinking about it and know enough to make a difference.
I mean, the first step is just asking, is this as accessible as it can possibly be?
Actually, great you bring that up, because that's something that we should be talking about more and incorporating more into our curriculum at Capilano U. So maybe mention that.
I've got an inclusive designer and researcher.
Yeah, no, totally. I'm sure some of my other instructors probably do, but I teach first years lately, so they're just trying to get their head around design in general.
I think that I'm going to get some of this wrong, but I believe that the Ontario colleges, the sort of design schools, have gotten together and started thinking a little bit about how to start incorporating accessibility into the curriculum in a much more concrete way than it once was. And this has been legislation here for a while, almost a decade now, I think.
Another big trend for us, kind of riffing off accessibility, I think we're all conscious of the climate crisis and everything that we live in nowadays, and we're working with a lot of brands that are in, I say sustainability, they don't like using that term, they don't like using the term circularity because of it just becoming in vogue. So we're really conscious of that, and we, our number one client, and we say this as a brand and as an agency, is the planet, and that's how we think about our impact. And I've had a lot of conversations recently with clients, with partners, even specifically printers. I was at Met Printers last Wednesday talking to them about sustainable packaging and printing and options for e-com retailers when it comes to like, hey, I need to ship out my goods, and I want it to be as eco-friendly as possible, and what are the methods and things, and hearing firsthand of some of the innovation that they're going into in their processes, and how basically they're taking, you know, processes that were invented in the Industrial Revolution and having to completely rethink them because of their impact on the planet. And I think we as designers, as creatives, as strategists, as writers of any kind of facet, we have an obligation to consider that as we continue to deplete resources and affect, you know, what we call home. And I think that's really, really conscious that something we also should all be aware of.
Absolutely. That was when I was teaching third year packaging at CAP. That was, you know, some of the projects I gave them is find something on the shelf and make it the packaging sustainable, and, you know, basically minimize the packaging.
One of our clients that we're working on their rebrand at the moment, they work with apparel and outdoor retailers, and it's all about intentionality in the design process of second life products. It's not like, hey, you've made this jacket and it's going to last 20 to 30 years. What happens after that? What can it be reused? How can it be recycled? What can you take from it? And really considering that as part of the creation process. And I think that for me, it was really, like, I was thought-provoking. I was really inspired from the discovery session that we came out from them with, and the work that we're doing with them now of how to speak to this with much more clarity and get that message out and make sure that everybody feels that. And again, it kind of comes back to us as our responsibility of the work that we create and the responsibility that we feel for that.
Absolutely. Another thing that we're noticing, and which is really important, is diversity and inclusion. So we're trying to work with that in mind as well. So that real systemic change that we're seeing in society, that we want to see in society, we're trying to bring that into the way we work too. So that means like really considering who's in front and behind the camera, and really, really, really taking care to make sure that representation is done properly. So that's another great, amazing change that we're seeing, as well as, of course, the sustainability, the circular economy, all that is actually in place too. A lot more clients are thinking about it, even not so much in terms of like how they output their work, but how they're seeing the people working within the system. So like livable wages, or the way that we might work with a client where we might take the time it might need to actually create something with a lot of integrity instead of rushing or having this urgency play. So thinking about my own sustainability as a creative as well, and how I work with clients. So there's been a huge shift, which I love so much. It's so wonderful to be a part of it and seeing these changes implemented in the design, because we are designers, we're thinkers, we're challengers, we come up with solutions. So it's really lovely to see it when the design is actually being challenged and reworked for a more healthier future, which is really, really, really exciting.
Yes. We can change the world. That's what I always tell my students. We as designers can change the world.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the next generation, the future, we only have a couple minutes left together. So let's maybe close this one up. Our last one, we made it all the way to the West Coast, but close this one up with some advice for that next generation. So sort of leaving school, starting to enter the workforce. What's something you wish you knew?
Oh my goodness.
Who wants to go first? I know exactly what it was. For me, it was when we started the business, hire a bookkeeper. I tried to do everything myself.
You're the
That's so
second person
basic,
to
but
say that. Someone else said hire an accountant. That was there.
Right on. Oh man.
I don't
Never
know.
deactivate your vitality through commodification. Always keep being creative and get that true spirit of your artistry out there without having to fear all the times of scarcity, yield, evil capitalism. Just keep on going, be creative, and go for it. Vitality.
The best piece of advice I ever got given was be a sponge. Everybody has a teachable moment in them, and you can learn it in every scenario from anybody, like even interactions that, you know, with anybody in everyday piece of life. Like this morning I had a great conversation at the coffee shop downstairs when I chatted with the guy when he poured me my coffee. It's just you know, those are the moments where you can learn from other people and bring that in. And I think that's what we do as creatives, as designers. We make connections and we bring ideas to the forefront, and that's what I encourage like the next generation to think about. It's not how well a piece of type is kerned. Maybe it is, but you know,
A little
at
bit.
the same time, it is the people piece. That's why I do what I do. Like the friendships and bonds and things that I've made along the way. And there's some very impactful friendships in the last 12 months that are bearing significance for me personally at the moment, through relationships that I've made with Indigenous communities that have really been very significant for somebody who isn't from here, as you can tell. So yeah, really kind of leaning into that and just taking every moment as it comes. And you know, you never know where you could end up and what you could be doing. I didn't think I would be here now 15 years ago.
Maybe building on that, my advice would be to kind of seek out a diversity of experience. You know, that's what your 20s are for. Move around the world, move jobs, move sectors, and you'll be that. It's not going to slow you down if you're particularly like career oriented. It's actually going to speed you up because you'll have this rich experience to draw on, and it makes life really interesting.
Yeah, and I think be kind to each other. That's whether it be your clients or your peers or your bosses or your employees. I think that's
And kind to
goes
yourself.
away. Yeah, and yourself. That's true.
Yeah, I've always thought that clarity was the kindest thing you could do. Those honest conversations,
Mhm.
keeping it really clear is beautiful.
Yeah, for sure.
I am so appreciative for your kindness in offering up some time, some wisdom, to all of our panelists and studios that participated in the Great Canadian Studio Crawl. I really, really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us and to talk to our whole national audience.
Thanks for bringing us together, Nicola.
Yeah,
thank you,
thank
Nicola.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, RGD. Thank you for the
Yeah.
invite.
Yeah, RGD rocks, I have to say.
What a sweet note to end on.
See you at Design Thinkers as well.
See you at Design Thinkers
Yes,
in
you all
May.
Yeah.
And
Make
any
it-
other programming you want to bring to us. Yes, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I will see all of you in May on May 30th and 31st. Design Thinkers registration is open. And until then, take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.